In Saudi Arabia, a man once stumbled upon an ancient book. Drawn by its secrets, he began to read, and through its instructions, he succeeded in summoning a female Jinni, whom he later took as his wife. That in itself was a dark and unsettling act, but what followed was even darker. The Jinni murdered the man's human wife, his parents, and his in-laws, wiping out his entire family. Throughout history, that book was feared, banned, and burned. Yet the Son of Knowledge survived the centuries to become the most notorious Arabic grimoire. The name is Shams al-Ma'arif wa Lataif al-Awarif, which in English translates to the Son of Knowledge and the Subtleties of Spiritual Insight. In the mid-1230s, the Provençal Kabbalist Isaac the Blind warned his disciples that committing Kabbalistic secrets to writing risked their exposure. He was especially critical of the Kabbalists of Burgos, who, he said, spoke of mystical teachings openly in the marketplaces and in the streets, showing that their hearts have turned away from the divine. At roughly the same time, on the opposite side of the Mediterranean, the Sufi thinker Muhyiddin ibn Arabi wrote Kitab Al-Mim wal-Waw wal-Nun, a short treatise on the science of letters and names, Ilm al-Huruf wal-Asma, now often called lettrism. Ibn Arabi cautioned that such knowledge should only be conveyed in coded and guarded terms to prevent misuse. He especially warned against recording the methods by which the occult properties, khawas, of letters and names could be employed in talismans and other practices meant to affect the physical world. At the same time, however, there was another who was composing works that explored precisely those operative and occult aspects of lettrism, writings that would earn him lasting fame and infamy after his death. Ahmad al-Buni was his name. He came from Algeria, the son of a man remembered as a reciter of the Quran. From an early age, he walked the path of mysticism, eventually studying under the renowned Sufi master Abd al-Aziz al-Mahdawi, the same teacher who guided the celebrated mystic Ibn al-Arabi. At the opening of his Shams al-Ma'arif, al-Buni writes, "Whoever possesses this book must guard it from the unworthy. Let him not use it for himself, for that is forbidden." Al-Buni's writings suggest that he intended his works only for Sufi adepts, those capable of properly understanding and transmitting their contents. For about a century after his death, his texts indeed seem to have circulated mainly within small, tightly guarded circles of esoteric Sufis, who kept them hidden from outsiders. Over time, however, and despite al-Buni's clear insistence on secrecy, his works began to spread more widely. They found their way into the households of Mamluk and later Ottoman rulers, as well as among the soldiers and bureaucrats who served them, ultimately reaching the height of their popularity in the Ottoman world during the 17th century. During this period, the book was fiercely condemned, banned, and deeply feared. The scholar Ibn Taymiyyah went so far as to denounce it outright as heresy and sorcery, declaring it a work of seer, magic. Yet, despite relentless opposition, Shams al-Ma'arif continued to circulate and survive through the centuries. The text we possess today, however, is not exactly what al-Buni himself composed. Over time, later writers expanded upon it, inserting their own material and falsely attributing it to al-Buni. As a result, the surviving version has grown to nearly 6 times the size of the original work. This expanded compilation is what came to be known as Shams al-Ma'arif al-Kubra, the Greater Sun of Knowledge. Before we turn to the contents of his book, we must recognize that al-Buni was no ordinary Sufi. He was a polymath, skilled in mathematics, geometry, astronomy, and astrology, a man of intelligence capable of producing such a work. And he addressed his readers saying, "I have set forth all things for you. Do not give in to weariness, for impatience is the ruin of the student. Seek, and you shall find. Neglect, and you shall find nothing. Strive for knowledge, and you shall be guided. Lettrism, as mentioned earlier, lies at the very core of this work. Al-Buni taught that letters possess hidden powers capable of influencing human life. Numbers, too, carry unique properties assigned by God, with each letter of the Arabic alphabet linked to a specific numerical value. To unlock these powers, the book turns to the realms of the planets, the stars, and the unseen, al-Ghaib. Al-Buni mapped certain Arabic letters to celestial bodies. For example, the letter Alif corresponds to the throne of God, while Jinn was associated with the sphere of Saturn, and its numerical value was given as 53. In this system, the interplay of letters, numbers, and planets formed the foundation for talismanic practices. Parallels can be drawn here with the Jewish Kabbalah, for both traditions are built on the conviction that letters and numbers hold divine powers. These powers, according to their adepts, can be harnessed by arranging letters into precise numerical patterns and geometrical figures, which you will see later in the video. Al-Buni pointed to the 28 letters of the Arabic alphabet and argued that this could not be mere coincidence, for they matched the 28 lunar mansions. To him, the phases of the moon and the movements of the planets were not merely mechanical cycles of the cosmos, but forces imbued with power, powers that could be drawn upon for the benefit of human life. To harness these celestial forces, Sufis turned to ilm al-huruf, the science of letters. The connection between the letters, their numerical values, and the movements of the heavens formed the basis of this esoteric discipline. Al-Buni stressed that the accessibility of the lunar phases was not to be taken lightly. These were not simply matters of theory, but had direct application in magical practice. For this reason, he included instructions on how to calculate the lunar phases and determine the moon's position within its mansions, so that such operations could be performed at the proper time. As an example, he explained that the Arabic letter dal corresponds to the number 4. To draw upon its power, he instructed that a 4x4 square be inscribed, but only after performing the ritual in a state of purity and at the specific exaltation of the moon. The benefits of this square, he wrote, were considerable. Whoever carries it will be under God's protection. Learning and understanding will be made easy for them, and their status will be elevated in the heavens and on earth. A prisoner who keeps this square close will find release by the will of God. And the one who raises it aloft as the banner of war shall be shielded from enemies, from the faithless, and from the corrupt. A vast portion of Shams al-Ma'arif is dedicated to the hidden properties of the 99 names of God, the Asma al-Husna, as well as the mystical powers of the Bismillah. In the case of the letter Dal, al-Buni noted that it appears within the divine names and attributes such as Daim, the eternal, and Wadud, the loving. In Daim, nothing precedes the Dal. In Wadud, nothing follows it. To al-Buni, this was a sign that God's existence has no beginning and no end. For this reason, he declared, the letter Dal contains the secret of eternity and perpetuity. In al-Buni's system, the sciences of letters and numbers are intricately bound together and are very important. He himself declared, the secrets of speech are founded upon numbers, just as the secrets of actions are founded upon letters. In the human world, numbers possess secrets and benefits which God has assigned to them, just as He has assigned to the letters their own secrets and benefits. Regarding the letter Dal, al-Buni gave further instructions for its use in talismanic practice. He described how one should inscribe the letters square in the recess of a ring and wear it as an amulet. In another instance, he explained how to harness its numerical powers by preparing an amulet, placing it in water, and then drinking from it as a remedy against fever, snake or scorpion bites, and chest pains. The 4x4 square of numbers associated with Dal is designed so that the sum of each row and column equals 34, the numerical value of the letter itself. One must admit, al-Buni was a remarkable intellect who produced a fascinating body of work. Many of his writings appear uplifting and even beneficial. Yet, almost without warning, unsettling elements emerge, material that seems harmless on the surface, but carries a much darker undertone. This is precisely what makes the book so dangerous. The line between spiritual knowledge and forbidden practice is blurred, and the reader may not realize when they have crossed into the realm of shadows. Immediately after his discussion of the letter Dal, al-Buni records an imprecation for vengeance, a practice that is plainly unethical and deeply troubling. To carry it out, as with many other rituals, the magician is instructed to consider the positions of celestial bodies while inscribing intricate geometrical figures filled with numbers and the letters of the victim's name. Once the amulet is completed, the book directs that it be buried in the home under the light of the moon, but the ritual does not end there. The practitioner is then told to summon an unseen entity with an adjuration such as, "I adjure you by the one who created you, fashioned you, and placed you among the stars. Be my necessary equipment, for I have proclaimed authority over you." This is a direct invocation of forces from the unseen world, a form of dark magic that remains in use among sorcerers to this very day. Such magicians employ elaborate talismans covered with squares, triangles, stars, and even highly complex geometric forms designed to compel spirits from al-Ghaib. And this practice bears a close resemblance to the teachings of the Kabbalists, who also held that numbers possess intrinsic powers and that carefully constructed geometric figures serve as conduits for channeling hidden energies from the unseen realm into the material world. The book also contains instructions for rituals and amulets intended to inspire love and attraction. Yet even in these, the magician is instructed to summon entities from the unseen, a practice that is equally forbidden and dangerous. Al-Buni also devoted great attention to the 28 lunar mansions, treating each one in detail. He wrote that when rituals are performed under the influence of a given mansion, different spirits would appear to the practitioner. Some, he claimed, were benevolent and could be approached for knowledge, while others were malevolent and could be compelled for darker purposes, such as carrying out vengeance, acquiring wealth, or influencing those in positions of authority. Al-Buni even recounts the story of a man named Abu Jafar al-Bayaki, who possessed one such amulet. According to the account, it was because of this amulet that the Abbasid Caliph Harun al-Rashid admitted him into his court and granted him whatever he desired. The book does not limit itself to talismans and amulet making. It also ventures into the fields of astronomy and astrology. In fact, al-Buni placed greater emphasis on astrology, offering detailed explanations of the 12 zodiac signs, those very same signs that astrologers and horoscope writers still use today. The central idea is that the stars and celestial bodies, by virtue of their positions, influence events and conditions on Earth. This is the same notion behind the horoscopes often seen in newspapers or broadcast on television, claiming, for example, that for those born under Libra or another sign, a particular day is auspicious for business or personal ventures. Historically, such beliefs carried significant weight. Rulers and kings often relied heavily on astrologers, consulting them for guidance in warfare, state decisions, and even matters as personal as marriage. Al-Buni attempted to ground his astrological discussions in Quranic verses, using them to support the framework of the zodiac. Yet his interpretations are strained, as those verses in their true context hold meanings very different from what he suggested. What distinguishes Shams al-Ma'arif from other astrological writings is its method of encoding these celestial forces into talismanic structures. Letters and numbers are arranged into grids corresponding to a planet or sign. and when created at the proper astrological moment, the object was believed to capture and transmit that cosmic power. Such talismans could be carried for protection, buried to exert influence, or concealed within a building to establish control. As for myself, I do not subscribe to the belief that zodiac signs or the positions of the stars carry inherent effects over human life without action. For that reason, I will not delve deeply into these astrological claims, but simply note their presence in the text. The book also applies Quranic verses to a variety of ritual uses. For instance, al-Buni takes verses from Surah al-Baqarah and arranges their numerical values into a square. He then instructs that if a practitioner writes the verse on his hand and carries an amulet bearing this square, he will be able to extract hidden secrets from another person by placing that hand upon the person's chest and questioning him. In another diagram, the names of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, along with the archangels Jibril, Israfil, Mikail, and Azrael, are inscribed beside numerical values derived from a verse in Surah Al-Imran. The accompanying instructions state that whoever carries this talisman will be safeguarded from the evils of both jinn and men, including those who strike by night and those who strike by day. It is undeniable that letters and numbers have long been regarded as possessing hidden properties. When arranged into geometric patterns, as in Shams al-Ma'arif and in Kabbalistic traditions, they are believed to impose various effects and powers. Such designs, whether in the form of amulets, talismans, or charms, are thought to act as channels, transferring energy from one realm into another. Some even claim that the only true means of summoning jinn or other entities from the al-Ghaib lies in the very methods recorded in Shams al-Ma'arif, the intricate geometrical figures inscribed with precise letters and numbers. In this context, the book often employs Quranic verses as the basis for constructing specific geometric forms combined with numerical values. This is presented as the process by which amulets are created. Yet if these charms are used for harm, causing pain or suffering, then it follows that the evil lies not in the Quranic text itself, but in the manipulation of the numbers and patterns into which it is forced. This is the method by which practitioners of black magic operate. They do not hesitate to employ Quranic verses, but in a grossly corrupt and sacrilegious manner. Accounts describe magicians reciting verses backwards, twisting their meanings, or writing sacred words using filth, even with ink mixed with urine or written beneath their own feet. Such acts are deliberate desecrations of the Quran, carried out to pervert what is holy for the purpose of summoning dark forces. Thus, when Shams al-Ma'arif presents patterns said to be drawn from Quranic verses, yet intended for destructive ends, it cannot be the sacred words themselves that transmit evil. Rather, it is the distorted numerical values and the corrupted geometric designs that serve as the true channels of harm. From the outset, it must be made clear, Shams al-Ma'arif is an occult manual, and that alone makes it profoundly dangerous. Its writers often presented their work as if it were derived from the Quran itself, but in reality the methods are the exact opposite of what is sacred, as already explained. The book is filled with geometric diagrams, inscribed with letters and numerical values that it claims to draw from Quranic verses. In truth, these designs are distortions. For example, one such pattern is said to be derived from verses of Surah Hud, yet its use is purely corrupt. The instructions command the practitioner to inscribe the pattern upon the bone of an owl and then bury it in the house of the intended victim. The text promises that this will bring about the victim's destruction, a practice of unambiguous evil. How could such instructions ever be considered Sufi or sacred? Other passages present talismanic constructions supposedly meant to guide a practitioner to hidden wealth or to secure a position of authority within a ruler's court. These are not spiritual teachings. They are formulas for greed and domination. Among the most sinister instructions is one especially disturbing operation. Al-Buni sets out a highly intricate geometric pattern, inscribed with letters claimed to be taken from Quranic verses. But no such pattern belongs to the Quran. It is a fabrication intended for harm. The practitioner is told to write the victim's name alongside his mother's name within the figure at a specified phase of the moon, and then to bury it beside a stream flowing eastward. The instructions declare that this will cause the victim to bleed, and if left buried for 7 days, it will bring about his death. One of the most reviled outcomes in Islam, and one that Satan delights in, is divorce, the rupture between husband and wife. The Quran relates that 2 angels, Harut and Marut, were sent as a test and taught people certain kinds of magic. Among the practices associated with that legacy was a sorcery intended to cause marital separation. Unsurprisingly, Shams al-Ma'arif preserves instructions for this very art. The ritual typically directs the practitioner to inscribe a precise geometrical figure filled with specific numbers, dip that inscription in water, and then sprinkle the water around the victim's home. According to the book, this act can sow discord and bring about divorce, an application of occult power that the text treats as dreadfully effective. Al-Buni also describes a further equally troubling practice, a right to force neighbors to relocate. The method is stereotypical of talismanic operations in the text. Draw the prescribed chart on wood, bury it before the neighbor's house, and the compulsion will, the text claims, drive them from the place. Such rituals expose the true nature of the book. Those who call Shams al-Ma'arif the most dangerous book in the Islamic occult tradition are not exaggerating. It does not elevate the soul, nor does it guide one toward God. Instead, it twists sacred words into tools of cruelty. If evil has ever been committed under the pretense of spirituality, this book is one of its clearest examples. A striking feature that runs through nearly all the magical operations is the use of precise shapes, geometrical patterns interwoven with numbers and letters. This same symbolism survives today in popular practice across the Middle East and South Asia, where people often wear amulets around their necks, hang them in homes or shops, and rely on them as protection against the evil eye or even against sorcery. When such amulets are opened, many of them encased in small leather pouches, they frequently reveal intricate grids, numbers, and coded arrangements of letters. Countless examples have surfaced in the process of countering black magic, with practitioners uncovering buried or hidden talismans inscribed for harmful purposes that had similar kinds of patterns and designs. I think that much of this occult diagrammatic tradition draws from 2 main sources: the Jewish mystical system of Kabbalah and the infamous grimoire Shams al-Ma'arif. I remember an experience from almost 11 years ago when I was about 13. At the time, I used to go to my teacher's house to learn the Quran. In his home, there was an old edition of the Quran that I became attached to. I would always choose to read from that particular copy, not only because of its age, but also because of what I discovered within it. After the final chapter of the Quran, the manuscript contained several additional pages filled with material that was completely new and fascinating to me. Each day, after completing my Quran recitation, I would turn to those extra pages and read them. What I found there were the 99 names of Allah, but not in the simple way I had known them before. Alongside each divine name was a set of instructions. Each name carried its own unique guidance. How many times it should be recited, at what hour or circumstance, and what effect or blessing it was believed to bring. Some of these instructions promised sustenance and wealth to the one who recited a certain name a prescribed number of times. Others were said to heal illness, increase knowledge, or open doors to various benefits. I recall that some names were written not singly, but in pairs, such as Ya Maliku Ya Quddus, with their own distinct instructions. What I had discovered in those pages, as a young boy, was only the beginning. Beyond the lists of divine names and their instructions lay something even more mysterious, knowledge that, at the time, I could not truly comprehend. For every chapter of the Quran, there appeared what the manuscript called a map, a matrix of numbers arranged in carefully measured grids. Some were 4 by 4, others 5 by 4, and some even larger. Each square of these matrices contained specific numbers written in Arabic, and beside them were instructions explaining how they might be used and what benefits they could supposedly bring. I was too young then to understand the depth of what I was reading, but I was fascinated. One passage especially caught my attention, the map of Surah Maryam. The instructions claimed that if one copied this matrix onto paper and tied it to the branches of a barren tree in the morning sunlight, then, by the will of God, that tree would bear abundant fruit. At the time, we had 4 grown trees in our yard, 1 lemon tree and 3 guava trees. They had been standing for years, but they never produced a single fruit. Intrigued and hopeful, I decided to follow the instructions. I copied the map of Surah Maryam onto papers and carefully bound them to the branches of all 4 trees. I still remember vividly what happened. The following year, for the first time, all of those trees began to bear fruit in abundance. Year after year, they continued to produce, even after I removed the papers. They remained fruitful until the day I eventually cut them down. I was amazed, but at the time I did not give it much thought. And for that I am grateful to God. Only later did I recognize what I had encountered, the science of letters and numbers. I imagine what might have happened if, as a boy, I had experimented with other maps and other aims. The map of Surah Maryam worked in that instance, and as far as I know, produced no harm. Yet that is precisely the problem. The same techniques can be used to hide malice inside apparently benign formulas. As we have seen in Shams al-Ma'arif, al-Buni and later compilers include maps and charts that are explicitly intended to injure or manipulate, using Quranic material as a cover. On the surface, such material may sound sacred. In reality, the Quran itself has no connection to acts of harm. Because most people do not possess the knowledge to distinguish the good from the dangerous applications of these formulas, the prudent course is abstention. One cannot know in advance what will befall a person who experiments with such powers and gets it wrong. I tell this story to show that the science of letters, numbers, and geometry is not merely theoretical. It can have real effects. The charts I found resemble materially the practices I later read about in Shams al-Ma'arif, the same reliance on letters, numbers, and mapped geometries. One example proved helpful without ill effect. The other tradition contains clear instructions for harm. My conclusion is clear and resolute. This body of occult knowledge is perilous to approach. As for Shams al-Ma'arif, I counsel all to keep far from it. Its pages are clothed in words of marvel and mysticism, yet behind them lies a path that can lead one into darkness before he even knows he has stepped upon it. Shams al-Ma'arif stands as the chief source of practical magic within the Islamic occult tradition. Though banned in many lands, it did not merely survive, it flourished. Colonial administrators in Algeria during the 19th century were among the first outsiders to notice its influence. French officers, while raiding villages or investigating local uprisings, frequently confiscated amulets and manuscripts from the village healers and religious scholars. Among these confiscated texts, Shams al-Ma'arif appeared again and again. The French Orientalist Octave Haudas, who studied these materials, remarked, "The book was not a curiosity kept on shelves, but a living source of magical practice. Villagers carried talismans written according to its instructions, folded papers with magic squares, inscribed with Quranic verses and the names of God, sometimes hidden in leather pouches worn around the neck. These amulets were prepared to protect against illness, to shield men from bullets in battle, and to guard homes from Jinn." And if there was such an urgent demand for defenses against Jinn, it follows that darker forces must also have been widespread, and Shams al-Ma'arif preserves a vast array of instructions for commanding spirits, bending wills, and unleashing harm. Ethnographers working in Morocco and Algeria during the 20th century confirmed the persistence of these practices long after colonial rule. In rural communities, healers continued to rely on the afak, the numerical squares that al-Buni systematized in his book. The patterns were reproduced, copied, and circulated from manuscript to manuscript, sometimes slightly altered, but always recognizable in their structure. In South Asia, the text achieved even greater circulation. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Shams al-Ma'arif was translated, printed, and sold in Urdu and Arabic editions. Its diagrams and talismanic instructions moved out of manuscript culture and into the hands of ordinary people through inexpensive lithographed copies. In cities like Delhi, Lahore, and Lucknow, amulet makers, known as amils, relied on the book as their primary source. Even today, in Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, the influence is visible in the bustling markets where small leather pouches are sold. Inside them are folded slips of paper bearing squares of numbers and letters. Though most buyers never see the inner contents, the forms are recognizable as those preserved in al-Buni's manual. Again, I must say, practitioners, magicians, and in South Asia, Amil have long drawn directly on the techniques of Shams al-Ma'arif, most notably its system of magic squares. Ethnographic and archival evidence shows these grids being used in talismans intended to bind jinn, to undermine rival families or businesses, to attract wealth, and to perform love magic, practices that are both ethically problematic and explicitly forbidden in Islamic law. The book is indeed dangerous.